Therapy. Therapy. What is therapy? Should I go to therapy? Can I afford therapy? Can I not afford therapy? Hello and welcome to another English podcast with Paul. I'm your host, Paul. And as always, we come with another interesting topic that we're going to debate and discuss here on English Podcast with Paul. And as I said before, we are unscripted and unedited, natural, native English conversation. So if you're driving a car, please just focus on driving the car. Turn up the volume just a little bit. If you're not driving a car, then put on those headphones, crank up that dial, and let's dive into therapy. Now, what is therapy? So if you're living in Asia, in the eastern side of the world, then therapy may be an unusual concept. Therapy may seem a bit strange because from my experience, families are much more connected and much more together when they live in houses together in the eastern side of the world. But for those that want to know more, then therapy is generally a case where you talk to another person. Often you pay for it. Sometimes you can get it free with the government and health services. So therapy, talking to somebody else about your problems. But what does the therapy do? So therapy is generally a trained professional. Now there are a few different levels to this. You've kind of got like your, how should we say, coach. You've got a coach down at the bottom, coaching you into maybe your business, or a life coach. So you kind of got like a life coach. And then you got the next level up, which is like maybe a year of training, CBT, and short courses to help you get through some small issues. And then you got the next level. You got therapeutic counselors that are trained for a few years to around degree level, that can really help with some serious, deep life issues. All right, and that will take a lot longer. These counselors, those. So if you talk about the length of time as well, so you got the qualification, coach, then CBT, kind of low-level therapy, and then you got a proper therapist trained for a year. Trained for a degree, a few years, 3 or 4 years, and then you got psychiatric. Oh, I wrote it down. I did write it down. A psychiatric. No, it's not psychiatric. What is it? Psychiatrist. There we go. See, English is not easy for English people. A psychiatrist, a clinical physician, psychiatrist. Now they are the top, where they can be a doctor. They're like a doctor, basically. Well, they are a doctor. And they can give prescriptions. So right at the top here, we have people that would use that service would be people that are struggling to be active in society. So people on the edge, or in psychiatric services, or on the edge of being locked up for their safety and safety of others. So that's right at the top end. I keep getting the name wrong. Psychiatrist, right at the top there. Then you have counselor, a therapeutic counselor, which has got a degree, cannot write out a prescription, but is trained for most issues. And then we have CBT and other small issues that can be helped to cope with your issues over a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks. And then down here we have like life coach, which is just about advice, really, just general life advice. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of 4 levels of therapy that you can talk about and that you can pay for. Whew. that was hard for me. All right. Why would you need therapy? Why would you need therapy? Well, it's because our everyday lives are so busy, so hectic, so confusing that there are times where we feel we really need to share with somebody else to make sure that we're not going mad. Sometimes you might feel that you're completely confused with the world and you don't know what's going on, and you've lost all direction and you've lost your way in life. So if you want some direction for your way in life, then you may choose a coach, a life coach down here. And those can charge a pretty penny. And then if you think you've got other issues that you may need help with, and they're not really, really serious, but they are issues that you need to deal with, or just talk to somebody. Just talk to somebody to get some things off your chest, some things that you're not happy about. Then you could maybe use a CBT counselor at this kind of level. And that's where a lot of people are. A lot of people need a little bit of guidance and some tools to help deal with stressful situations. And those tools might be closing your eyes and counting to 10, or just grabbing the chair you're sat in and feel where you are in reality and in real life. Some of those tools can be very basic, but very powerful. And then you have the next level up, where we're talking more about serious issues that is affecting your family life, your work life. Maybe it's bereavement and you're struggling to cope and having a very difficult time. And that needs unpacking for a lot more issues. And then right above that, like I said, at the top, then you've got people that are really struggling to maintain a life in society. Maybe if you're suicidal, or you're feeling like you need to murder somebody, or you've been in some real dangerous criminal activities and you need medication to bring your head down. Now, I've seen all these levels, and not many people see individuals at the top end. And at the top end is where I've worked in hospital. Well, I say it's a hospital. It's a mental health hospital. And the individuals I've seen there have often been on what we call forensic. I wrote the word down here so I don't get it wrong. Forensic psychiatric hospital, or forensic mental health. So this is people that have actually been remanded by the police because they may have committed a murder or may have committed rape, or they may just seem extremely dangerous because they're completely disconnected and disillusioned? No, delusional, that's the word, delusional, where they cannot understand reality to non-reality, I guess. And I've seen some people at this level in the hospital, and I've spent shifts locked in a small room corridor next to another locked room with a patient that was in this room, like a padded cell, and we had to open the little hatch, or I had to open the hatch, pass through the drinks and things like this. And these particular individuals are very, very unwell. That's the politest way I can say it. Very, very unwell and unbalanced. Often, this is a case of far too many drugs and alcohol problems. There are occasionally some other reasons, but these people are very, very disturbed, unbalanced, and not well individuals. And as I've said before, everybody is a human being. These hospitals, where I worked, even though I was trained and working alongside other professionals, it was still a quite, I would say, a scary place to be to start with until you get used to it and you understand the way things work. And it's a very well oiled machine. It's very good and efficient at bringing in people that are unbalanced and disturbed and upset, given the right medication from a psychiatrist, a clinical psychiatrist that's able to prescribe medication, and constant observations in a confined space. Over a few weeks, sometimes a couple of months, they really start to settle down, calm down, and then they can go into the rest of the population of this wing of the hospital. And this wing of the hospital I worked in, there was the part that I worked in, there was probably 20 patients. And some of them you can have a reasonable conversation with and were interesting, nice people. And some of them were very, I want to say disillusioned. It's not disillusioned. Delusional. And you think, oh, is it safe to be around this person? Are they going to hit me? Are they going to really attack me? But 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen because they're being monitored. There's doctors not monitoring them. There's other professionals. There's nurses. There's always a nurse on shift, and there's a few staff ready to help if there's any unexpected or physical outbursts. Don't get me wrong. There were a few outbursts, but generally it was very well contained very quickly. So I was very impressed. I was very impressed working in this hospital, the efficiency and the systems in place to help these patients that were very, very unwell. So that was eye-opening for me. I didn't stay too long for other reasons, but that's my choice and not to get into right now. If you message me in the comments, maybe I'll share why I didn't stay very long in that job. I think I stayed probably a month and then I decided it wasn't for me. Okay, so that's the highest end of therapy. Now, the next level of therapy I've also tried. I've been to a therapist that wanted to discuss my issues and wanted to unpack some of the problems I had. And with therapists, if you're paying for it and you're having a choice, it's very important that you find one that's right for you, one that you respect, and one that you can build a good rapport with, a good relationship with that you enjoy. And I've seen a couple and I didn't enjoy them, to be honest. So maybe I should keep looking for one. On the other hand, my wife is a trained counseling therapist at that upper intermediate level, as mentioned before. And she'd studied for, I think she studied for about 5 years. So I have a lot of conversations with my wife, especially when I lost my mother. My wife was instrumental in helping me come to terms with those feelings. So I'm very grateful there. And although sometimes I help my wife in emotional and balancing and being a sounding board for one another, she probably helps me more than I help her. But I am very grateful she has that awareness and knowledge of the workings of the mind. That not just feeds my mental stimulation that I desire, but also it helps her as a person be much more aware of her feelings and my feelings. And it really does open up a lot of communication between us. So I'm very grateful for that and the insights that she gives me. Don't get me wrong, it's also a very much interest and a hobby of mine. I've read many, many books on therapy and counseling. And to be honest with you, my favorite writer is Dr. Irvine Yalom. He's currently my favorite. I've read almost everything of his. And it's very, very humbling to read Dr. Irvine Yalom because he himself is very honest and very open and very insightful. The amount of times I thought, wow, that's amazing. Just some small snippets of information. I think that's flipping amazing. I'm blown away with that insight. So I really like Dr. Irvine Yalom. You can see him on YouTube. You can read his books. Please, please do. Okay, so then the next level down, as I said before, there is more like CBT and other lighter counseling that you might find in a school to help young people or to help anybody with lighter issues. Although they don't seem like lighter issues because they're affecting your whole life at that point. But a few simple tools and awareness and exercises can really help you get to grips with issues at that level. And then, like I said before, we've got like the coach that gives you some sort of life advice to help you get you on your straight and narrow and focus where you want to go and be in life. So that's really an insight into the different types of therapy in general. Right. Now, I haven't mentioned all types of therapy. That's the 4 kind of levels. But then there's lots of other types of therapy. So there's hypnosis therapy, there's child therapy, there's art therapy, there's music therapy. Now, a lot of these are considered, the lower level way of dealing with stress and pent up energy and allowing yourself to focus some of your thoughts and allow them to run more freely when discussing with the therapist. So there's lots of different types of therapy. Scream therapy, that's a funny one. Okay, now ongoing, I recommend for most people therapy should be ongoing throughout your life, or at least have a mentor or a coach or somebody that you respect that you can have a sounding board with, where you can tell them your issues and your problems and just feel normal. All right, like a really good friend where you can be yourself. Now that should be ongoing throughout your life with, like I said, either a therapist or a really, really good friend that's honest with you. Okay. Briefly mentioned there are hundreds and hundreds of therapy books and videos and apps. Be careful not to get sucked into the pseudoscience, the psychology and science that people just regurgitate that they've heard somewhere. All right, it's not always helpful to take advice from somebody that heard it from somebody else, like on Instagram. Oh yeah, you should do this. I heard on Instagram it's really good for this. If you've got some issues, talk to somebody you trust, whether it be your doctor or whether it be your employer or a really good friend. Better still, pay for a therapist. A therapist can really make your life much more efficient, happy, and worth living if you are able to get a good therapist that you can really jump into all your issues and problems. And as I said, currently I don't have a therapist, but I talk a lot to my wife, who's a trained therapist. But in general, I believe that we're all holding on to a lot of baggage. We're all holding on to a lot of problems and issues, and it percolates just under the surface. It bubbles just under the surface. And it's really good to not allow it to build up like a pressure cooker and then come out like a big blow up, like a really big problem. So I recommend either having therapy or somebody you really trust to speak to for all your life. It is very, very therapeutic, hence the word, to be able to discuss your everyday issues and problems. And like I said, if you have deeper problems, see a therapist and work on those issues. Okay, we should all be trying to work on improving ourselves every day. We should all be being grateful and trying to make ourselves a better person than we were last week. That's assuming that you've covered the basics, like having food in your stomach and shelter over your head and feeling safe. So if you've ever heard the Maslow's hierarchy triangle, this is a triangle that's been devised that states that you have to cover the basics first. It doesn't matter who you are. If you don't have food or shelter, you cannot think about other people. All right? So food, shelter, security. And then we move up the triangle and eventually self-actualization, where you really do try and be a great person, or the best you can be, rather, the best you can be. Maybe look at some monks and things like that, where they try to let go of all egocentric ideas and embrace and love everything. It's a very deep thing to look at. Anyway, have a look at it in Google. Maslow's triangle, Maslow's hierarchy. Right, okay. I mentioned all the books. I mentioned children's therapy. Now, it seems a little bit sad in our modern Western world that we need to do supply therapy for children. Because yes, children see and hear and understand when trauma happens in their life, whether it's a divorce, whether it's something bad happening to them, a car accident or abuse. You know, everybody suffers trauma at some point, and it's terrible that it happens to children. So having children's therapy seems a little bit sad that our society needs that. But in another way, it's very good that we're trying to work on it and trying to help our children be more balanced, healthy adults in the future. Come back to that word balance again. Okay. So there's one of my there's a few people I like in the media, and one of them recently spoke out about taboos. And if you don't know, taboo is something you're not allowed to talk about, something that is shunned. All right. So one of the persons I like, the celebrity, let's say, talked about mental health in young men. I think one of his friends committed suicide, and so he was using his celebrityism as a mouthpiece to bring awareness to people with mental health issues, and that we should talk more and help our friends more. So also with that taboo, there's lots of other taboos that we don't talk about that we should be talking about. Now, maybe that's for another subject and another day. But talking about things is the best way to combat it. Now, there's quite a few charities out there, especially in the West and especially in the UK. We have like the Samaritans and Mind and a few other big charities. Often you'll see a high bridge. Maybe you're walking over a bridge and you'll see a sign with "Having worries, ring the Samaritans." Now this is where people have gone to a bridge and thought about jumping off the bridge and killing themselves. So charities try to offer a phone number where you can ring up and have a conversation and try and save your life and help you get the mental health help and support you need. There's also a child phone line and NSPCC, National Society Prevention of Cruelty to Children. I think that's what it is. If I get it wrong, mention it in the comments. So we have charities to help talk and get support, because one, you got to overcome the taboo. Two, you got to overcome the ego of your mind, the ego of self respect. You know, sometimes that's the hardest thing to get past, refusing support. And then finally, there's not always the resources out there, or if there are, there's a very long waiting list. You may have to wait 6 weeks, even 6 months to see a therapist on the NHS, on the medical side of things, on the medical government help. So that makes a big barrier for people to getting the help they need now. Hence why there's these charities such as Samaritans and Mind with their signs above the bridges, at the bridges. There's also another charity that is for men of a certain age, because a lot of older men kind of get forgotten and disappear into the ether. And there's this charity called Shed, SHED, shed. And it's about helping men do things with their hands, like building things and spending time in a shed where a man would normally feel naturally safe and comfortable to be able to talk about issues. So this shed charity is very good to get involved with. Well, any charity is, to be honest, that helps with mental health. Another one that we don't really think about as much as we should is Cruz, C-R-U-Z, Cruz. And then this is for people that have had recently suffered a bereavement, a death in the family. So not just for adults, but also for children, a bereavement, a death is very, very difficult. It's a big trauma to try and digest and understand and cope with and continue your life without being upset and unbalanced. So Cruz is a very, very good counseling service specifically aimed at people that have trauma from bereavement. Now, I mentioned children because there's a number of children's books that you can read to help children understand death and bereavement. Specifically, and this is where it becomes more often for children, when children lose a pet, like their dog or their cat or their hamster, and trying to help them understand what happens, what naturally happens, and help them sleep at night without nightmares. So it's good idea to read these books with your children when something like that has just happened. So bereavement counseling is often overlooked, but it is super important to help you move forward with your life and feel a bit more balanced and see the good side of life and keep living. It's very, very, very important, and I think underrated, Cruz counseling. All right, okay. So we mentioned most of the different types of therapy. And I just want to say now that if you personally are suffering with a trauma or something in your life that's really, really getting you down, then I just want to say, please go and talk to somebody. Get rid of that ego in your head. Don't worry about the taboo of what it is. It doesn't matter. What matters is your mental health, your life. All right? Your life is what's more important. So please go and speak to somebody. Okay, that's it for today. If you have any comments, please put it down below. If there's something you'd like to share or you'd like to reach out, then please message me directly. I hope this was interesting. And like I said, message below if there's something you'd like to share. Right, as always, thanks for listening and keep having fun, keep learning English. If you don't have fun, you're not going to learn. Take care for now. Goodbye.